Hi class, how are you today? Oh, hi Mr. Conway. The learning target for today is to determine if two lines are parallel and state why. The scale, you're 3 if you can determine if two lines are parallel and state why. 2, you can determine if two lines are parallel but you can't state the reason why. 1, you can find angle measures using parallel lines, which is the learning target from the previous lesson. And 0, you cannot find angle measures using parallel lines, because if you can't find angle measures using parallel lines, then you're going to have a hard time determining if two lines are parallel. Let's get started.
Alright, so here are a bunch of theorems about parallel lines. The first four, the four that are in blue, we've sort of already talked about, although I didn't name them as theorems. So, corresponding angles, alternate interior angles, alternate exterior angles, and interiors on the same side, or as I said, same side interiors. Those all have their rules. The corresponding and the alternates are all congruent. The same side interiors, and it doesn't have the same side exteriors here, but that's also true, those are supplementary. So the thing I want to talk about today are the converses, the ones in white, all these converses. So the blue ones say that if you have two parallel lines, then the corresponding angles are congruent, the alternate interior angles are congruent, the alternate exterior angles are congruent, and the same side interior and exterior are supplementary. The converses say it in the other direction. They say, using the corresponding for example, if two lines are cut by a transversal and the corresponding are congruent, then the lines are parallel. So, instead of assuming that we already start off with parallel lines, we're now saying if you have two lines cut by a transversal and the corresponding angles are congruent, then those lines are parallel. And that's also true with the alternate interior and the alternate exterior. And the same side interiors are that if two lines are cut by a transversal and the same side interiors are supplementary, then the lines are parallel. So pretty much what this is saying is if the rules that we've been doing with parallel lines work, then those lines are parallel lines. So make sure to write these down because they're very important. I took this image off the internet, so you should probably put the blue ones together and the white ones together. The blue ones are the regular and the white ones are the converse. And the converses are the ones that we're going to be talking about. Alright, so here's an example. As usual, don't mind my drawing, I'm a terrible artist. So, determine which lines, if any, are parallel. So we have some measurements here, and we want to use those measurements along with the theorems we just talked about to be able to determine which of these lines, if any, are parallel. First thing I look at when I see this is I see a triangle right here. Triangle BDF. And in that triangle we have two angles, 65 degrees and 55 degrees. So using that, we can find the third angle. We just say 55 plus 65, which is 120, and then say 180 minus that, which is 60. So this angle right here is 60 degrees. Well, we now notice that this angle is 60 degrees, and this is also 60 degrees. So those two are congruent, which means we might be able to use those to prove that two lines are parallel. So let's look at this. It's always good to extend your lines out a little bit. So let's extend this line out just a bit. And so now, in this area right here, if these were parallel, then we'd be looking at these two angles here, and this angle is in the upper right hand corner, and down here this angle is in the upper right hand corner. So they're in the same spot in two different pictures. That means those two angles are corresponding angles. So we know that angle BDF is congruent to angle DGH, and that's because they are corresponding angles. You can abbreviate. So because of that, we know that those two angles are congruent because they're corresponding. So the two lines that they are related to are parallel because of the corresponding angle theorem. So this line right here, line DF, is parallel to this line right here. Remember, two vertical lines to say that they're parallel is parallel to line GH. So we know that those two are parallel. Awesome. Now let's see if the other two are parallel. Let's see if AB is parallel to those as well. So another thing I look at is we see that this angle right here is 55 degrees and this angle right here is 55 degrees. Well, 55 plus 55 will give us 110, and those three angles here make a line. So that means 180 minus those two angles will give us the third angle, which is 70. So we know this right here is 70. So now, if we are trying to see if these two are parallel, if these two lines are parallel and this is the transversal we're talking about, then this angle right here is 65 degrees and this one is 70. These are both on the interior of the parallel lines. They're both inside the parallel lines, but they're on opposite sides of the transversal, alternate sides. So these two are alternate interior angles. So if they're alternate interior angles and these two lines were parallel, then these should be congruent. However, this angle is 65 and this is 70. So that means they're not congruent. So that means these two lines are not parallel. So AB and DF are not parallel to each other. So to answer this question, the only two lines that are parallel are DF and GH.
Alright, now time for the sponge activity. So, I have a bunch of lines here, and I want you to state which lines are parallel, if any, and state why. So, we've got line AB, line AC, line EF, line AF, and line BE. And I want you to state which of two pairs are parallel, as many as you can find that are parallel, and give your reason why. So are they alternate exterior angles, corresponding angles, those type. That's it for the lesson. Once again, please make sure to take notes on the entire lesson. Go back to the scale, remember to circle it where you think you are on the scale, 0, 1, 2, or 3. Please make sure to take a picture of your notes.
Submit them to Google Classroom.
You need to attempt the sponge, get credit, full credit on the homework, and have a good night.